As of today, take this thumbs down with you, shove it up your ass, and leave me alone.
Turns into a frog, and then the princess, that's me, kisses Hamudia Jom, and then he turns into a handsome prince, and they live happily ever after. The end.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Greg Heffley UTTP. How dare you call me a man-child in the comments in one of my videos? You are grounded, 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 grounded for the rest of your life.
Because I've learned my lesson for using racism. Or else, because I don't want to use that. Or else I might end up beaten up by someone.
Dan Sobel built a name on YouTube for overreacting and creating cringy posts. At first, his videos looked like a person sharing his favorite shows by giving reviews and posting clips of cartoons like My Little Pony and other cartoons. But over time, the harmless fandom chatter gave way to food reviews, angry shouting, and feuds with other creators for calling him out, and bizarre outbursts on viewers' comments that the online community never forgot. Then, in one of the strangest turns, another creator named Austin's father uploaded videos calling Dan out directly. He faced accusations of harassment and was eventually forced to apologize on camera. Not long after Sobel disappeared from YouTube altogether, rumors quickly spread that his parents had stepped in and grounded him after the fallout. So how does someone go from cartoon reviews to public takedowns and a sudden disappearance? And where is he now? But before we dive into those questions, there's something we need to understand first. Why did a Sophia the First fan suddenly become controversial? To answer that, we have to look at what set Dan apart from other creators right from the start. So, first off, we all know that YouTube is full of personalities, from the polished pros to the quirky hobbyists, and somewhere in between resides Dan Sobel. If you've been around the YouTube drama circles, you've probably heard his name. Sometimes with admiration, sometimes with eye rolls. Oh no, not again! I still despise Dan Sobel for treating everyone badly. But Dan didn't start out as the drama magnet he is today. In fact, his early YouTube journey was far more innocent, just a passionate kid sharing what he loved.
Hamudi turns into a frog, and then the princess, that's me, kisses Hamudia Jom, and then he turns into a handsome prince, and they live happily ever after. The end.
Born on January 13th, 1999 in Dix Hills, New York, Dan had a deep fascination with children's shows, particularly My Little Pony and Sophia the First.
Hey there, everybody. I am Dan, the My Little Pony and Sophia the First fan 1999. And I would like to say, thank you all so much for helping me reach up to 3K subscribers.
While most teens would have quietly outgrown these interests, Dan leaned into them wholeheartedly. He talked about storylines, pointed out what characters did, and shared his opinions as if every detail was important. His videos showed his personality, energetic and outspoken. Sometimes he praised a character, other times he complained about a scene, but his strong emotions always came through. So why did he create channels around these shows? Dan loved these cartoons and wanted to carve out a space where he could talk about them endlessly. It was his way of finding a community, of being seen and heard in conversations where he otherwise might have been ignored. Then in 2019, Dan launched a channel called Dan the My Little Pony and Sophia the First Fan. The name tells you exactly what you're getting: reviews, reactions, and personal takes on his favorite shows. On the surface, it seemed like just another niche channel, but even early on, Dan's personality shone through: loud, passionate, and a little chaotic. You could see hints of what would later define him: energy that borders on craziness.
You get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
Blunt honesty about what hurt him.
And don't make any more message videos out of me, because I am through with you. And one more thing, Jordan, I will not be sending you any more video letter segments because of that.
And the way he would make call-out videos on other creators. Moreover, from the very beginning, Dan didn't only post videos and wait for people to watch, but dove headfirst into the community.
I do not want to see another message or an other type of video from you. So if I see any uploaded, I will get very mad at you, even more.
Sometimes he was helpful and friendly, but other times he came off as pushy or intense.
Also, for what I've learned about what you thought about me telling people to shove middle fingers up their private areas, for what I've learned about it, well, it is disgusting and it makes you sick.
And if someone even mistakenly disagreed with him, Dan rarely let it slide quietly. That unpredicted and sometimes hilarious takes amazed his viewers, which kept them coming back.
First of all, you do not ever bring up my past about what I did 3 years ago. And when it's in the past, it's in the past. And people needs to start moving forward in life.
But this wasn't the only thing that got him attention. As Dan's channel slowly gained traction, so did the number of people he clashed with.
As of today, take this thumbs down with you, shove it up your ass, and leave me alone. As of 3 years ago, f you, and get out of here.
Some arguments were more personal, caused by misunderstandings or small disagreements. One clear example involved a creator named Savage Gamer, 1998.
Hey there guys, it's Dan Sobel here. This is an angry message to Savage Gamer 1998. Dude, why in the names of God did you make a commentary video out of me?
Savage Gamer made a video analyzing and criticizing Dan's general content and style, and Dan fired back with a fiery response video, defending himself while questioning Savage Gamer's motives. He asked him what gave him the right to question his style and make a whole commentary video on it.
Dude, why in the names of God did you make a commentary video out of me? Just because I hated Zoe the drawing cat? How dare you? Why did you do that sort of thing? Guess what, Savage Gamer 1998? I just reported you just because you bashed my opinion on Zoe the drawing cat. So you just got reported already.
The dispute played out in public, giving the audience front row seats to the drama. However, Dan's early interactions with other creators weren't just about video responses either. He also had a habit of sending unsolicited messages. Some were innocent, like sharing thoughts or fan compliments.
Ben Lamontia, I'm upset because of Mark Taylor.
But many were complaints, critiques, or venting about perceived offenses. He would start recording and share everything he found false about a particular comment or response, like in this clip.
This is an angry message to the All the Dogs Go to Heaven fan. The All the Dogs Go to Heaven fan, I got something to say to you, bro. Why the f did you force me to take criticism by making commentary videos out of me?
Occasionally these messages were made public, either by Dan himself or by their recipients, which only made him get more views. And to Dan, it was just how he engaged with his world. This mix of passion, confrontation, and oversharing made Dan stand out. Some viewers loved him for his raw honesty and boundless energy. They found him entertaining, relatable, and refreshingly blunt. That split in audience perception would become a recurring theme throughout his career. Fans adored him, critics rolled their eyes. I still like Dan Sobel. Dan Sobel and Ben Lamontia are big crybabies, and everyone watched, intrigued to see what he would do next. Interestingly, a lot of this early drama wasn't necessarily planned. Dan was still figuring out how to navigate online communities. The result was a reputation that grew faster than his subscriber count. People began to associate his name with drama, even if the incidents themselves were relatively minor.
And I would like to say, thank you all so much for helping me reach up to 3K subscribers. I really appreciate all the love and support. So, thank you all for helping me reach up to 3K subscribers. I really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Moreover, there's also a certain pattern that emerges from these early conflicts. Disagreement leads to public response, and thus attention.
You made a terrible video out of Andy Ho. That is unacceptable. You made a commentary video out of Andy Ho? What's wrong with you today? What are you thinking?
This formula became a defining part of Dan's presence on YouTube. While it frustrated some viewers, it also made him memorable. Because in a platform crowded with creators, being remembered, even for controversy, is often better than being invisible. Moreover, by the time Dan moved beyond his niche fandom content, these early patterns had already set the stage for bigger controversies. Fans and critics alike had learned what to expect: passionate videos, unfiltered opinions, and public disputes. Whether you loved him or hated him, you knew Dan Sobel would never quietly let things slide.
And if you're still friends with Allie Wilson, you can tell your friend Allie Wilson, I am going to drink her piss. And since Charlie Janice is a minor, I'm gonna have to tell him to shove that middle finger up his private.
However, the situation worsened when that intensity was on full display in one of his most memorable rants. He explained, in a voice already strained with frustration, that vocals like Davin Osborne and Jose Crespin had exposed him on Google Meets about his outbursts and daily content, blocked him on Facebook Messenger, and accused him of crossing lines he swore he hadn't crossed.
Okay, everyone. I am making this very serious video because I am starting to get very angry, and it's making me want to rage my voice right now. Because I have 3 opinion changes. I now hate Vinny the social media guy, Devin Osborne, Jose Crespin and Lance White.
As the minutes went on, his tone only escalated. He repeated again and again that he hadn't insulted anyone, that his jokes were misunderstood, and that he was tired of being accused of things he didn't do.
They exposed me on the Google Meets, and they also blocked me on Facebook Messenger. And they also thinks I was taking jokes that are very mean and very harshful, which I did not even mean to take a joke like that. And Devin Osborne thinks I was insulting Maddie Nelson, which I didn't even do so!
His anger built into a storm, his voice rising as he announced goodbye after goodbye, repeating that he never wanted to see them again.
So Devin Osborne, Jose Crespin, Lance White, and Vinny the social media guy, if you guys are watching this, what the f*** is your problem? What the f*** is wrong with you, Vinny? Devin Osborne, Jose Crespin, and Lance! Are you f***ing wrong with you?
What's undeniable is that this outburst highlighted both sides of Dan Sobel's persona, a creator who wore his emotions openly, but also someone whose inability to de-escalate turned minor disputes into viral drama.
You know what, Vinny? You're a monster. And Devin, you're fat. Jose Crespin, you're a bitch. And Lance, you need to go f*** yourself, because I am severely done with you all! I am done with you! You made me very angry! You made me very angry and made me want to freak out!
So by the mid-2020s, Dan Sobel wasn't just a fan content creator anymore. He was a figure who sparked discussions, arguments, and debates across the community. His name became a shorthand for drama, unpredictability, and the kind of over-the-top energy that made him impossible to ignore. And while not every moment from these early years was dramatic, the pattern was clear. Dan Sobel had a way of turning even small situations into public spectacles, keeping viewers engaged, critics frustrated, and the internet watching. One of the major examples of this came in his interactions with fellow YouTuber Jordan Bowens.
This is a response message for Jordan Bowens. Just don't make any videos out of me, and don't ever make a commentary video about me, and don't make any more message videos out of me, because I am through with you. And one more thing, Jordan, I will not be sending you any more video letter segments because of that.
At first it was just friendly banter, a few comments here and there. But as often happens in YouTube circles, small disagreements can escalate quickly, especially when personalities are strong.
You would not do shit to me. I swear you wouldn't do shit to me, bro. In real life, you touch me, I swear, bro. If you ever touch me, bro, in the wrong way, I swear to God, bro, I'm beating the shit. I'm knocking you the f out. You're weak as f. You take steroids, okay?
Dan and Jordan had been close friends for years, but things took a sharp turn when Jordan suddenly decided to call him out. Dan wasn't the type to forgive and forget, and the breaking point came when Jordan went public on social media, accusing Dan of being rude to him and his friends. For Dan, it became a big deal. Instead of letting it go, he took to his own channel and social platforms to share his disappointment and anger. In his videos, he expressed genuine frustration, detailing how he felt betrayed and hurt that his friend would make a whole video about past trivial things. However, whatever Dan might say, Jordan never backed out and detailed everything from Dan's crazy gestures to his weird behavior.
Hello everyone, this is Jordan's Media Corner 2000 here, and let me tell you the truth about Dan Sobel. Number 1. Back in September 2022, he screamed in front of my friends.
And here's the thing. The video wasn't just about being called out or getting blocked by Jordan. It was about the emotions behind it. Hurt feelings, perceived slights, and the sense that online interactions mattered in a way that sometimes felt bigger than life.
That's what people are supposed to do. Because you know this is God's country, Jordan. And also, Jordan, you had to block me on YouTube and Messenger? Just for bringing up my past about what I did back in 2022? Seriously, Jordan?
Once the video went live, reactions poured in. Fans of Dan were sympathetic. They praised him for being honest with his feelings, for standing up for himself, and for not pretending that the block didn't bother him. Some critics even poked fun at the emotional intensity of the response, dubbing it classic Dan Sobel drama. One wrote, "Dan Sobel's a heartless monster." But that wasn't the end. The public airing of the dispute triggered even more engagement. The block became less about the action itself and more about what it symbolized. A clash of personalities, a lesson in digital etiquette, and, for many, a source of entertainment. Here, Dan's choice to go public wasn't unusual for him. But the Bowens situation stood out because it was one of the first times his disputes reached beyond his small circle and gained wider attention.
He cusses and swears and pulls his middle finger to my friends for no reason at all.
Audience reactions were mixed. Some viewers enjoyed seeing someone call it like it is. They liked that Dan wasn't afraid to show frustration or hurt feelings, but others saw it as unnecessary drama and started questioning his behavior more openly. A person commented, "I never liked Dan Sobel to begin with." This incident also revealed another layer of Dan's approach. He didn't just react, he engaged strategically. By posting a video, he ensured the impact was what he wanted, which was gaining as many views as possible. He framed the story as my side of what happened, making it both personal and public.
And the real reason why I screamed is because it was all because of the guy named Devin Osborne. It should be Devin Osborne's fault, not mine.
The Bowens dispute wasn't just about hurt feelings. It was bigger than that. It became a lesson in online dynamics. And for the wider community, it was the first real look at the drama-filled personality Dan Sobel would soon be known for.
I hope you even close down your YouTube for cyberbullying my friend Roy PERPZ.
This consistent pattern became central to his online identity. He didn't shy away from confrontation. He leaned into it, ensuring every dispute generated content, engagement, and visibility. Social media blocks, messages, and public callouts intensified the drama, and fans learned to expect it. But that wasn't the only thing that stuck to his identity. Over time, the community began to label him in ways that stung: immature, childish, or in harsher corners of the internet, a man-child. And once a label like that sticks, it can be hard to shake. Soon, clips of his reactions started circulating across forums and YouTube compilations, short, punchy snippets highlighting his most exaggerated moments. And that's where the mockery really kicked in. Each clip emphasized what the critics wanted to see: someone taking themselves too seriously, overreacting, or simply being too much.
Hey! Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! Wahoo!
What made this particularly biting was the speed at which these clips spread. Social media platforms amplified them, drawing in people who had never seen Dan's original videos. For new audiences, the first impression wasn't a thoughtful review of a show. It was a highlight reel of someone losing their cool. And when that first impression hits hard, it shapes perceptions in a way that's hard to reverse. The man-child label followed him like a shadow. It became shorthand in the community for immaturity, poor judgment, or just being too reactive. For some, it meant that no matter what Dan did, he couldn't fully escape criticism. Yet this phase of mockery also highlighted an important truth about internet fame. Engagement matters more than approval. Every clip, every meme, every sarcastic reaction brought more eyes to Dan's content. His subscriber count grew. His videos were watched more often. And ironically, the online teasing kept him relevant. The ridicule didn't destroy his channel, it fueled it, creating a feedback loop where drama and attention fed each other.
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Greg Heffley UTTP, how dare you call me a man-child in the comments in one of my videos? You are grounded, 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 grounded for the rest of your life.
By the time this wave of mockery peaked, Dan Sobel had firmly established himself as a personality impossible to ignore. Some loved him, some mocked him, and some did a little both. But everyone was watching. And here's the kicker. The same energy that earned him the man-child label also ensured he would never be forgotten. That reputation, awkward and sometimes cringeworthy, became part of his brand, a stepping stone toward the even bigger controversies and public disputes that were still to come. Just when you thought Dan Sobel's online persona couldn't get any more unpredictable, the infamous Google Meets incident hit, and it sent shockwaves through the community. It was one of those moments that instantly spread like wildfire, the kind of story people couldn't ignore even if they wanted to. The controversy began innocently enough, or at least as innocently as things ever start in Dan's world. During a Google Meet session, Dan allegedly exposed himself on camera. Clips of the incident circulated quickly, shared on forums, social media, and even by other YouTubers. Within hours, it felt like everyone online was talking about it.
Hi, I'm Hamudia John, and I want to go out in public.
What made the situation so intense wasn't just the act itself, it was the context. Dan already had a reputation for crazier behavior and drama. The man-child label, the public disputes, and the exaggerated reactions in his videos all set the stage. When news of the Google Meets incident broke, it wasn't seen as a single lapse. It was interpreted as part of a larger pattern, Critics claimed it was reckless and attention-seeking. Fans argued it was a mistake blown way out of proportion. People were horrified by the incident, citing it as evidence of immaturity or poor judgment. Many felt that the act of coming online crossed a line. Dan Sobel is bad news, other one says. Dan Sobel is so gross that he needs to be sent to prison for exposing himself in front of minors 2 times. Interestingly, this controversy revealed a consistent pattern in Dan's online life. Every public misstep becomes a form of content. Videos responding to the incident, discussions with followers, and posts clarifying his side all fed into a cycle of engagement.
And from now on, since Hamudia Jom is a dead topic, I am no longer roasting him anymore, since he's old news to me at the point.
The incident also had long-term effects on his reputation. Critics used it to reinforce the man-child and lolcow labels, while fans began to see him as someone who constantly teetered on the edge between controversial and entertaining. Google Meets incident demonstrated how Dan Sobel's persona, which had been building quietly through early disputes and mockery, could escalate into a major controversy almost overnight. It also highlighted a key aspect of his online presence, the ability to turn even mistakes into engagement, debate, and discussion. Another chapter in Dan Sobel's turbulent online history came when he waded into territory that carried far heavier consequences: racist comments and political rants.
Donald Trump just got fired from the White House, which means he's no longer the president anymore. And what I recently heard from Ben LaMancha saying that Donald Trump got arrested. Why he got arrested, you may ask? Well, it's because of his racism. So yeah, Donald Trump got arrested for racism. That is why he got fired from the president job. So that means I am starting to lose my interest on Donald Trump.
Layered on top of this, Dan occasionally threw himself into political commentary. His delivery was heated, blunt, and often polarizing, and he rashly discussed Trump often. Instead of sparking thoughtful debate, his remarks fueled further controversy, drawing pushback from viewers who felt his insensitive words on racism crossed lines that couldn't be ignored. The backlash eventually reached a point where Dan attempted to contain the firestorm. He uploaded an apology video, speaking directly to the camera in a noticeably calmer tone.
And also, the most important thing that I've learned is that telling the truth is way better than lying, and it would set me free.
He admitted his earlier comments were wrong, insisted he hadn't meant harm, and asked for forgiveness. While the sincerity of that apology was debated, the video marked one of the few times Dan publicly acknowledged missteps, evidence of how deeply the controversy had shaken his channel and his reputation.
And I've learned that racism can get you in trouble. And I am never going to be using racism anymore. Ever since that was back in 2021. Because I've learned my lesson for using racism. Or else, because I don't want to use that. Or else I might end up beaten up by someone.
By the time 2024 rolled around, Dan Sobel had already weathered countless controversies. However, what would ultimately become his final and most decisive downfall came through a bitter dispute with another community member named Austin, with whom Dan had been fighting over content. The breaking point arrived when Austin's father himself stepped into the spotlight. In a video uploaded directly to address Dan, he delivered a stern, measured message that cut straight through the noise. With an air of authority, he warned Dan that if the harassment about his content and threats continued, the authorities would be contacted.
Hi, I'm Austin's father, and I have a message for Dan Soel. First of all, I've been made to understand that you have been harassing and also bashing my son, Austin. I do not appreciate that.
He reminded viewers, and Dan directly, that this wasn't an idle threat, but something he had enforced before to protect his son.
First of all, you are not in a position to be telling people who to like, what to do, or how to do things. Okay? Let's get one thing straight. You are not someone else's boss. And opinion bashing and threatening to call the police on other people, unless you have a real good legal ground to do that, you have nothing. So basically, I want you to knock that stuff off now.
This was only the first of 2 videos Austin's father uploaded, both reiterating the same point. Dan needed to stop harassing his son, stop trying to control the conversation, and stop escalating arguments into threats.
At the end of that first video, I also gave you a warning. I said that if I needed to, I would contact the authorities and make a report. about your online behavior where you're harassing people and doing all sorts of other inappropriate things. You were sent a notification about that video. I know this. So either you chose to completely ignore it, ignore the notification, or you watched that video and chose to ignore my message.
The fact that a parent had to step in and publicly record these warnings was shocking in itself. It wasn't just another creator feud anymore. It had crossed into the realm of real-world parental intervention and potential legal consequences. Dan was accused of harassing him and giving death threats. For Dan Sobel, the fallout was immediate and severe. Reports spread that his parents, already weary of his repeated controversies, grounded him following the incident.
Dan Sobel, the one and only man-child, got grounded by his parents and got in trouble by the cops, from what I heard. Because Austin Lee's dad told him in 2 videos that he first gave him a warning, and then secondly, he's like, alright, that's it. I'm sending the authorities to your house.
Unlike earlier dramas in which Dan often leaned into with more rants and fiery responses, this time there was silence. One wrote, "Such a supportive father. You tell him Austin's father, he is not getting away with this time." The grounding seemed to cut him off from uploading, FaceTiming other creators, or keeping up his steady stream of videos. The once constant presence on YouTube and social media suddenly disappeared. To the community, it felt like the curtain had come down on Dan's online saga. Fans and critics alike speculated about whether he would ever return. I haven't had any interaction from Dan, but I do know what he's done. I'm sorry you have to go through this. Your dad looks very mad knowing Dan didn't listen to your first message from him. Hope he sees this and stops talking to people like trash. Nice job, Austin's father, and yeah, I feel bad for those people who got affected by Dan's online actions. But the combination of Austin's father's direct warnings and the parental grounding suggested this was the end of the road. For someone whose brand was built on visibility, outbursts, and relentless drama, vanishing from the internet marked a dramatic and unexpected result. However, even after a long period of silence, Dan Sobel never stayed gone for long. His YouTube comebacks were always dramatic, often framed as fresh starts or new chapters. Each return began with public statements explaining his absence, promising more focused content or teasing collaborations. Fans who had followed him from the beginning were eager, while critics approached with skepticism, anticipating the drama that seemed to follow him like a shadow. From the first day back, community reactions were split. Longtime supporters welcomed him, commenting on the energy, nostalgia, and personality that made his earlier videos memorable. Others, however, were quick to point out that past patterns, rants, overreactions, and disputes were likely to reemerge. Every upload, comment, or a social media post was scrutinized for signs of repeated behavior. Of course he comes back! Bad people like him always comes back and never learn from their lesson from their mistakes, and YouTube thinks it's okay behavior for them when it's not. This creep, Dan Sobel, never learns. During these return periods, new controversies inevitably arose. One comeback video sparked debate over Dan's critiques of trending channels, drawing parallels to past disputes with reaction creators like Gamer and Bowen. Dan Sobel will never learn his lesson, does he? Put down the camera and start using that stuff in the background, buddy. The cycle was familiar. Small gestures or opinions escalated into full-blown community discussions, ensuring that even brief comebacks became events in themselves. Dan's approach to returning reflected a clear pattern. Visibility mattered more than silence. Each attempt, while fraught with criticism, kept him relevant. Yet the intensity of attention, both supportive and critical, showed that the community never truly forgave or forgot past drama. Every comeback was both a chance to rebuild and a reminder of the reputation that had grown around him over the years. Ultimately, his returns highlighted the double-edged nature of controversy. While they reignited engagement with his fans, they also reminded viewers why skepticism and criticism were ingrained in his online narrative. Every step forward came with the weight of past behavior and angry, controversial content, making each comeback a balancing act between new content and the drama that had defined much of his career. If he is back, do you think I will lose my hatred on him after stuff he has done? No. One of the first big shifts came when Dan dived into food reviews.
Today's taste test review, we're going to be reviewing the limited edition Chips Ahoy Chewy Hershey S'mores.
They weren't polished productions with fancy lighting or editing tricks. You'd often just see Dan sitting in a casual setting trying a snack, a meal, or fast food item, and giving his honest, sometimes unfiltered opinion. That rawness is exactly what made them stand out. While bigger food channels chased high production quality, Dan's charm came from his simplicity. He'd take a bite, react immediately, and speak his mind without worrying about presentation.
So the thing I just got from the folks over at Buffalo Wild Wings is honey garlic and honey sriracha.
For some viewers, it was refreshing. For others, it became another piece of internet humor. Either way, his food reviews added a new dimension to his channel, showing that his interests weren't limited to cartoons and reactions. Not long after, Dan tried his hand at Hollywood Reports, short commentary-style videos where he'd talk about entertainment news, celebrity stories, or major events in the industry.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Reports. Today, we're going to be talking about Kelly Clarkson's ex-husband, named Brandon Blackstock.
He didn't present himself as a gossip insider, but more like an everyday fan who wanted to share his perspective. These videos often had a casual, conversational tone, like he was just chatting with friends about the latest movie or a headline-grabbing story that was catching people's attention. The combination of food reviews, collaborations, and Hollywood Reports widened his audience. People who had no connection to My Little Pony or Sophia the First could still stumble across his takes on a new burger release or a duet. Of course, reactions were mixed. Some appreciated the variety, while others saw it as Dan stretching himself thin, chasing trends, or lacking a clear direction. I don't like this cringe video because I dislike it. But whether viewers tuned in to genuinely hear his thoughts, or just to see what he'd say next, the effect was the same. He kept people talking. Beyond rants and solo uploads, Dan Sobel also reached out to other local creators, often collaborating in ways that felt casual and unpolished. He frequently FaceTimed with fellow YouTubers and recorded those interactions, turning private conversations into public content. Sometimes these calls were lighthearted, with Dan chatting about shows, movies, or everyday life, while other times they leaned into the dramatic, with him addressing disputes or hashing out disagreements live. These moments gave audiences a glimpse of Dan in a different light. More conversational, more reactive, and sometimes more vulnerable. Whether it was laughing with allies or debating with rivals, his willingness to connect directly with others kept his content unpredictable and fueled the ever-changing narrative around him. These later ventures showed another side of Dan Sobel, someone willing to experiment and push into new territory, even if it didn't always land smoothly. From fandom reviews to fast food reactions to Hollywood hot takes, Dan made it clear that he wasn't confined to one lane, and he tried to be better than before. For better or worse, he wanted to be part of as many conversations as possible, and some people supported him. Anyway, Dan refused to settle down, and that determination carried him forward, even when setbacks piled up. Hi Daniel, great job giving us a report. Thank you. As of now, 2025 marked the end of an era. Dan Sobel's YouTube account was officially closed. Even though it exists, it doesn't follow any more uploads because now he is trying to rebrand on TikTok. Love him or criticize him, one thing is undeniable. He left the community among discussions, memes, and analysis of creators' behavior for years to come. What do you think? Was Dan Sobel a misunderstood creator navigating the chaos of the internet, or a personality who thrived on controversy? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's dive into the debate. And if you want more deep dives into the drama-filled stories of YouTube personalities, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because you won't want to miss what's coming next.